Hey guys, continuing on. We changed. We're wearing sweaters.
What?
I love this weather. It's like there was ice on the windshield. Did I tell you that this morning?
Oh wow!
Yeah,
really in
we
Florida.
had to sit in the so I can look back on this and I can remember how much we enjoyed that day. The one day it gets cold. Okay, enough.
Cat got under the covers this morning.
Yeah, extended congregate care training. We're going to go through different training requirements for these things. Extended congregate care training. The administrator and ECC supervisor, if different from the administrator, must complete core training and 4 hours of initial training in extended congregate care prior to the facility receiving ECC license or within 3 months of beginning employment in a currently licensed ECC facility as an administrator or ECC supervisor. Successful completion of the assisted living facility core training shall be a prerequisite for this training. So you need to take the core training in order to do that. You got that. Successful ECC supervisors who attended the assisted living facility core training prior to April 20th, 1998, which is none of you, shall not be required to take the assisted living facility core training competency test.
So there's 2 or 3 test questions that I can see just in this little paragraph. So it would be the 4 hours of initial training in ECC. So that would be in addition to core if you're in an ECC facility. So that would be a test question. And then the second one I see is the 3 months of beginning employment. You need to complete those requirements.
Yeah, they give you a grace period if you're just hired newly into an ECC facility, or if you so you have 3 months to get that training done, which isn't hard. We have it online, 4-hour training. And
it might say 90 days on the test, so just keep in mind they do those little tricks. But like I've recommended, make a column of 30 days, 45 days, and 90 days and start putting things under it. So you would put this ECC requirement under your 90-day column, and that's a good study guide.
Yeah, and the question might be something like, you hire a new administrator at your ECC facility, what training requirements must they have, or something like that. And then
the answer would be 4 hours.
It would be core training it might say core training within 90 days and ECC training, something like that.
So the takeaway really is the 4 hours, ECC class, and the 90 days.
Yep. Yeah, but they may pair them up. That's my point.
Sure.
Okay, let's go on to the next section.
The administrator and the ECC supervisor, if different from the administrator, must complete a minimum of 4 hours of continuing education every 2 years in topics related to the physical, psychological, or social needs of the frail, elderly, and disabled persons or persons with Alzheimer's disease or related disorders. So there's the 4-hour.
In addition to your 12-hour.
Right.
Yeah, so
put that under your 4-hour column.
Yeah.
And that would be a potential test question too.
Right. So
highlight that.
So if the state comes and they want to see the administrator or ECC supervisor, they're going to want to see your administrator license. They're going to want to see your CEUs for your administrator license, all part of your file, plus the 4 hours of CEUs for your ECC supervisor.
And we offer that course too.
Yeah. The administrator and ECC supervisor, did we read that? Yeah.
No, you're on C.
Yeah. All direct care staff providing care to residents in an ECC program must complete at least 2 hours of in-service training provided by the facility administrator or ECC supervisor within 6 months of beginning employment in the facility. The training must address ECC concepts and requirements, including statutory and rule requirements, and the delivery of personal care and supportive services in an ECC facility.
And there would be some potential test questions there too. I would be really surprised if there's more than 1 or 2 ECC questions on the whole
maybe 5 total
exam,
including what license types and.
Right, but I still think a majority of the test is medication and administration. More general things, not related specific to the licenses, but so anything that could potentially be on the test in C would be the 2 hours of in-service training and the 6 months. They could also do 6 months as 180 days. They tend to do those kind of tricky things.
Yeah, and the in-service training must be provided by the facility administrator or the ECC supervisor. I don't know we always say this. They don't say, "Hey, Cheryl and Calais, here's the test questions." It could be something that's on there. Just be aware of it. That the administrator, ECC supervisor provide the CEUs for the in-services. So 6 months, though. You mentioned that, right?
Correct.
Within 6 months, at the beginning.
Or
of the
180 days.
180 days. Okay.
So.
Limited mental health training. The administrator, managers, and staff who have direct contact with a mental health residence in a licensed limited mental health facility must receive the following training. A minimum of 6 hours of specialized training in work with individuals with mental health diagnoses. The training must be provided or approved by the Department of Children and Families and must be taken within 6 months of the facility receiving an LMH license or within 6 months of employment in an LMH facility. That was a mouthful, but it must be provided by an approved Department of Children and Families provider, taken within 6 months.
But I think the test question takeaway here would be the 6 hours of specialized training. So training received may count once for the 6 out of 12 continuing education requirement for administrators and managements. So you can't continue to take this every 2 years and count it. So you can take it once, count it once, and then, but that could be a test question too, 6 out of the 12 hours. Yeah. Again, I'd be surprised if there were more than 2 or 3
LMH
questions. So a minimum of 3 hours of continuing education, which may be provided by the ALF administrator online through My ALF Training or through distance learning biannually thereafter in subjects dealing with one or more of the following topics: mental health diagnosis, mental health treatment, mental health needs, services, behaviors, and appropriate interventions, resident progress in achieving treatment goals, how to recognize changes in the resident status or condition that may affect other services received or may require intervention, crisis services, and the Baker Act procedure.
Okay, so number 3.
That's it, but that's let's highlight that too, the 3 hours of continuing education.
Yeah, definitely. That's the
special.
takeaway as well. 3 hours of CU. So it's all your staff, right? They all need 3 hours of CUs provided by whoever it's provided by. And then they have to cover these particular subjects. So when they come in, if you have an ALMH residence, they have to have the 6 hours and then the 3 hours.
Continuing education.
Yeah.
Each year, right?
Each year. Yep.
No, I'm sorry.
Biannually.
Yeah.
So every 2 years.
Every 2 years. And they use those different words too, just so you know in the test. It's not 1 year, 2 year. They use annually, biannually. So Khalil's going to highlight that. All right, go down to 3.
Number 3. For administrators and managers, the continuing education requirement under this subsection will satisfy 3 of the 12 hours of continuing education required biannually pursuant. So for your administrators, if you're an LMH facility, the 3 hours can also be applied to the 12 hours, CEUs. So, but just for your reference, we offer a 12-hour class, makes it easy, and then, it'd be easier just to get 3 hours as well, right? And then the surveyor is going to say, there's your 12 hours and there's your 3 hours.
Correct.
Okay, instead of trying to educate the surveyor.
Right. Administrators, managers, and staff do not have to repeat the initial training should they change employers, provided they present a copy of their training certificate to the current employer for retention in the facility's personnel files. They must also ensure the copies of the continuing education training certificates are retained in their personnel files.
Okay. And it didn't sound like there was no gap of employment or anything like that. So you can take your training with you once you have it initially. Okay, Alzheimer's disease or related disorders, ADRD, training requirements. Facilities which advertise that they provide special care for persons with ADRD or who maintain secured areas as described in Chapter 4 of the Florida Building Code must ensure that facility staff receive the following training. So if A, your facility advertises yourself as memory care or that you provide special care for ADRD residents, or you have some sort of secure section, then this is extremely timely and important. You have to have the following.
So facility staff who interact on a daily basis with residents with ADRD but do not provide direct care to such residents, and staff who provide direct care to residents with ADRD shall obtain 4 hours of initial training within 3 months of employment. So if you've completed core between April 20th, 1998 and July 1st, 2003, that shall satisfy this requirement.
That won't be on the test. That part.
No, won't be on the test.
None of those like grandfathered provisions will be on any test.
But what will be on the test, if you get the test with this question, would be the 4 hours of initial training within 3 months. It'll probably say 90 days. So put that under your 90-day column and your 3-month column and the 4-hour initial training. And going down, so facility staff who meet the requirements for the ADRD training providers will be considered as having met this requirement. Initial training entitled Alzheimer's Disease and Related Disorders Level 1 training must address the following subject areas.
Yeah, and you're not going to be tested on those areas because basically you go to an approved provider like we are, their curriculum gets approved, everything's approved, they have curriculum approval dates, they have provider, Cheryl's she's a trainer, and we have the curriculum. And so just a side note, one of the most valuable things that we offer is a subscription program for your facility. So we have 3 tiers: small facility, medium facility, and large facility. $10, $30, or $50 a month, that's all you pay. And we set up a business account for all of your staff. And the person who runs it can log in, put courses in the employee's account. Before they even start work, they can get Alzheimer's Level 1, Alzheimer's Level 2 done. And you're not going to be trying to chase people down after the clock starts. It's really, really hard.
And it's a really important training, and you want your staff to understand this special population of people and know how to properly care for them.
Yeah, and I think that, everybody, it's about timing, really. It's like you need to hire somebody right away. Then you try to schedule a trainer, and the trainer's a month out. How do you put somebody on the floor? You throw them on the floor, they don't have the training. You forget, the state comes in, they're like, let me see Jane's file. Jane hasn't had the training yet. Oh, I forgot. I told Jane. So using our subscription program can erase all of that. And then we have tracking as well to help you remember. So enough self-promotion. A little commercial breaks over. So level 1 is within 3 months of employment.
Correct.
And then
with an approved training provider.
Yeah.
So staff who have successfully completed both the initial 1 hour and continuing 3 hours of ADRD training shall be considered to have met the initial assisted living facility's Alzheimer's disease and related disorders level 1 training. So the takeaway here is just make sure you have an approved training provider, which I am, and then you have to have the 4 hours in the 90 days for the initial training. So that would be the way the test would have the question.
Yeah, I'll just go on to level 2. Okay.
Right. So the next part, and this is the second part of the question and something you will see on the test, is facility staff who provide direct care to residents with ADRD must obtain an additional 4 hours of training entitled Alzheimer's Disease and Related Disorders Level 2 training within 9 months of employment. Facility staff who meet the requirements for ADRD training providers will be considered having met this training requirement. So you need an additional 4 hours within 9 months. So total you need 8 hours. Level 1, level 2.
Within 9 months.
So 4 hours within 3 months, an additional 4 hours 9 months after employment starts.
It's not 9 months in 1 day.
No, yeah, they're very strict about it.
So
the next section 1 through 5 tells the topics that'll be addressed in the training. You don't need to know that for the test, but just become familiar with it. D.
Yeah, D. A detailed description of the subject areas that must be included, which meets the requirements, can be found in the training guidelines. Okay, that's not that important. Direct care staff shall participate in 4 hours of continuing education annually as required in the Florida statutes. Continuing education received under this paragraph may be used to meet 3 of the 12 hours of continuing education required by administrators. Don't do that. Just get the 12 and then get your additional training. It's going to get convoluted. Okay, so 4 hours of CEUs from that date of the second level 2.
Correct. That's probably a test question too. I would highlight that.
Yeah, so it's basically, and then you have to recur. So, and if you let it lapse, so let's just use January 1st as the date that Jane finished her level 2. That means that Jane needs 4 hours of CEUs before January 1st the next year. And if Jane doesn't do it, then Jane's going to have to restart level 1, level 2.
Right.
Alzheimer's update. But with my ALF training subscription, they can do all 8 hours before they even start work.
And we have a task management tracker system too, so it'll alert you.
It'll remind you when they need the update.
Very important. So, facility staff who have only incidental contact with residents with ADRD must receive general written information provided by the facility on interacting with such residents within 3 months of employment. Incidental contact means all staff who neither provide direct care or are in regular contact with such residents.
So even maintenance,
your kitchen staff, housekeeping.
Lawn care. So basically, everybody needs. What did they say?
It's a written
information provided by the facility on interacting with residents. Okay.
Within 3 months, 90 days. Put that under your column. Haven't heard that one's on the test, but you never know.
I think that
good to know.
It's just if you have the training subscription. When you hire them, just put them all through level 1, level 2, and you're covered.
Right.
I mean, but just know that
this is the rule.
Put it as a checklist on everybody's file.
G.
Go ahead.
Persons who seek to provide ADRD training in accordance with this subsection must provide the department or its designee with documentation that they hold a bachelor's degree from an accredited college or university or hold a license as a registered nurse and 1, 2, and 3 just tells the general experience, not a test question, just review it. If you hire someone for your training, like myself, with the proper credentials, you'll be fine.
Yeah, just make sure, and that won't be I don't think that will be a test question. Okay.
No, not at all. Anything with a test question would be more so a proper training provider, approved training provider. Right. Not the administrator or another caregiver that can give this course.
Okay. Do not resuscitate orders training. Okay, so currently employed facility administrators, managers, direct care staff, and staff involved in resident admissions must receive at least 1 hour of training in the facility's policies and procedures regarding do not resuscitate orders, or DNRO. Okay, so newly hired staff need 1 hour provided on the facility's policies and procedures. Newly hired facility administrators, managers, direct care staff, and staff involved in resident admissions must receive at least 1 hour of training in the facility's policies within 30 days of employment.
So, thing to remember here is DNR training 1 hour, 30 days after employment. Because remember, some trainings and requirements are prior to employment, and some you have the 30-day grace period. So this falls within that 30 days afters.
Yeah. I don't think you need to worry about currently employed facility administrators.
No.
That sounds like a grandfathered in. When they put the rule in, they said, hey, everybody currently needs to have it. But any new person as well, you may as well go through everybody's file. They have to have that.
Right. And we made it really easy at our facility. We just made one check sheet.
Well, no, we have the My ALF Training has a DNRO training.
Right.
And but the check sheet.
So at our facility, we made it really easy, and we just had one check sheet, and you can just check off as they did it, and that way you don't miss anything because there are a lot of trainings.
Oh, I see.
And you can put the training
on the
dates.
Employee files.
Right, on the employee files.
Yeah, and if you upgrade to the I don't know if we allow upgrade.
Shameless commercial. Go ahead.
Well, in the consulting form package, we have all the checklists and everything.
Right.
Okay. I'm
that's
just
on the
plugging a lot. I'm not,
shameless, as our son would say, a shameless plug.
Okay, so let's go on. The training shall consist of information. Okay, now documentation and monitoring for the DNRO, except, this is all training, I think. Except as otherwise noted, certificates or copies of certificates or any training required by this rule must be documented in the facility's personnel files The documentation must include the following: the title of the training program, the subject matter of the training program, the training program agenda, the number of hours of the training program, the trainee's name, You see all that.
These are not
I don't
test
think
questions. Just be familiar with it because we need to learn the rules and regulations, but nothing to highlight for the test.
No. Maybe this right here, actually. The facility must provide the Department of Health Affairs Agency of Healthcare Administration with training documentation and training certificates. So there could be some common sense general question like the surveyor comes unannounced, wants to see your employee files. I don't know.
There's a lot of common sense general questions.
Yeah.
And I think some people have a hard time with that because it's not black and white and it's not a rule or regulation and it's just something that you have to apply to a scenario. But that's a good one. So I would definitely highlight C, that you have to provide the training documentation and certificates for review as requested.
Okay, that's it for this video, and we'll see you on the next slide.